Chapter 71. Back again, tavern crawling near the wharves of Delaware. The wharves upon Delaware. Ale stuporous, the surveyors enter the Crooked Finger Inn. We both know what it is, Dixon. Mason is instructing his partner. Your hour is come. Your innings for retributive pultrification. At last you must prepare, mustn't you, for all that expression of Jesuit interest so long deferred. This next commission being, after all, the one they were engineering all along, isn't it? Yes, another degree of latitude to put with the others they've appropriated. This is what it's all been leading to, correct? Wondrous. Now shall you, at least, finally learn, perhaps even via the Jesuit telegraph, why you are here. A blessing extended to half you. Anything I can do to help, of course. But what's the fucking use? Dixon resting his head briefly though audibly upon the table. It's over. Naught left to us but paperwork. Their task has shifted from direct traverse upon the line to pen and paper representation of it. In the sober daylight of Philadelphia, strained through 12 by 12 sash work, as in the spectreless light of the candles in their rooms, suffering but the fretful shadows of Dixon at the drafting table and Mason seconding now, reading from entries in the field book as Dixon once minded the clock for him. Finally, one day, Dixon announces, "Well, won't thee at least have a look?" Mason eagerly rushes to inspect the map of the boundaries, almost instantly boggling, for there, bold as a pirate's flag, is an 8-pointed star surmounted by a fleur-de-lis. What's this thing here, pointing north? Wasn't the Legrand flying one of these? Doth not it signify England's most inveterately hated rival, France? All respect, Mason. Among brother and sister needlefolk in every land, 'tis known universally as the flower de luce, a magnetical term. Flower of light? Light, hey? Sounds encyclopedistic to me, perhaps even Masonic, says Mason. A surveyor's north point, Dixon explains, by long tradition is his own, which he may draw and embellish in any way he pleases. So it point where north be. It becomes his hallmark, personal as a silversmith's, representative of his honesty and good name. Further, as with many glyphs, 'tis important ever to keep faith with it. For an often enormous investment of faith and will lies condensed within, giving it a potency in the world that the agents of reason care little for. 'Tis an ancient shape, said to go back to the earliest Italian wind roses, says Dixon, originally at the north. they put the letter T for tramontane, the wind that blew down from the Alps. Over the years, as ever befalls such frail bric-a-brac as letters of the alphabet, it was beaten into a kind of spearhead, though the kinder-hearted will aver it a lily, and clash thy face do they deny it. Yet some, finding it upon a new map, might also take it as a reassertion of French claims to Ohio, Mason pretends to remind him. Aye, thou've found me out, I confess. 'Tis a secret message to all who conspire in the dark. Eh, the old Jesuit canard again. At which Armand runs in, looking anxious. The duck is doing something autoerotic now? They rephrase. Unconsoled, Armand wanders away, becoming reaccustomed to this city's angular momentum is costing him daily struggle. He appears to miss the West Line, and the duck it has captured and denied him. Perhaps, for this map alone, it occurs to Mason, as east and west are of the essence, north need hardly be indicated at all. Need it? Or suppose you were to sketch in something less political. This has been my north point, Dixon declares, since the first map I ever drew. I cannot very readily forswear it now, sir, for some temporary tradesman's sign. It does not generally benefit the surveyor to debase the value of his north point by lending it to ends political. 'Twould be to betray my allegiance to Earth's magnetism, Earth herself, if thou like, which my flower de luce stands faithfully as the emblem of. Making no more sense of this than he ever may, Mason shrugs. It may sit less comfortably with the proprietors than with me. Oh, they're as happy to twit a king when they may as the next lad. Ha! So that is it! Thy uncritical worship of kings, with my inflexible hatred of them, taken together we equal one latter-day English subject. Much more likely twins ever in dispute, as the Indians once told us the beginning of the world. Huz, I'm far too jolly a soul ever to fight with thee for long. Because you know how your shins would suffer. Mason is able to inspect the long map, fragrant, elegantly cartouched with Indians and instruments at last. Every place they ran it, every house passed by, road crossed, the ridgelines and creeks, forests and glades, water everywhere and the dragon nearly visible. So, this is the line as all shall see it after its copper plate morphosis, and all history remember. This is what ye expect me to sign off on. Not the worst I've handed in, and had they wished to pay for colouring, why, they'd scarcely know the place. This is beauteous work. Emerson was right, Jeremiah. You were flying all the time. Dixon, his face darkened by the years of weather, may be allowing himself to blush in safety. Could have used a spot of orpiment, all the same, some lapis. It is possible, here comments the Reverend Cherrycoke, that for some couples, however close. Love is simply not in the cards. So must they pursue other projects instead, sometimes together, sometimes apart. I believe now that their third interdiction came when, at the end of the 8-year traverse, Mason and Dixon could not cross the perilous boundaries between themselves. Whatever happened at the Warrior Path, the partners are to remain amicably together among the cheerless bogs of Delaware through nearly another year, busy with the Royal Society's degree of latitude, chaining a meridian over the same ground as the tangent line, shivering in the damp of morning after morning, both fending off the ague with the miraculous willow bark powder discovered by the Reverend Mr. Edmund Stone of Chipping Norton, returned to the vegetational horizons, the sumac, whose touch brings misery, the deadly water snakes coiled together like the rugae of a single great brain, the grey and even illumination from the sky. The grey and even illumination from the sky. Their agreement to uncouple may easily have come, not after all during the crisis of the year before, at the Warrior Path, but rather here, somewhere upon this peninsula, wrapped in the lambent passing of any forgotten day of mild winds, the day, as ever, little to distinguish it from others before and after, but the values entered for miles, chains and links, and why not here, especially with leisure and opportunity at last, to talk of plans for the second transit, the possibility of return to America. The story among Dixon's descendants will be that Uncle Jeremiah wished to emigrate and settle here, and that his partner did not. Though in the field book, as late as June 9, Mason is to be found rhapsodizing and writing about Mr. Twyford's seat upon Nanticoke, as he does throughout the books as to other homes, other rivers or towns upon them. To Dixon, "Ay, how pleasing in all ways, yet address any of it too intently, and like dreams just at the crepuscule, 'twill all vanish unrecoverably." Shakespearean, correct? Nay, transcendence, 'twas but Masonic. Dixon gazes at the river, the gentle points and coves in the mist, the willows and loblolly pines, desiring, whilst humiliated at how impossible it is to desire any terrain in its interminable unfolding, every last pebble, dip, and rain path. For Mason, the year of Delaware is all passing like a dream. He can believe in this degree they are measuring, but in the way he believes in ghosts. For all its massless suggestion, number is yet more sensible to him than this America that haunts his progress. Stay? Here? Christ, no, Dixon. 'Twas an odyssey. Now must I return to the destiny ever waiting for me. Faithfully, her loom now mine, to sit and toil at, to the end of days, whilst she's out, no doubt, with any number of suitors, roaring and merry. Well, suggests Uncle Lomax, It's Pope and Lady Montague all over again, isn't it? A touchy race, the Brits, unfathomable, apt to take offence at anything. Disputes can go on for years. Yet 'twas never that cold, declares the Reverend. Each seemed to be content in postponing a return to England, and thereby to what others there expected, measuring the degree they may have intended to hide somehow inside the day work, surrendering as openly as they ever could into a desire to transcend their differently discomforted lives, through what, at the end of the day, would be but ranks and files of numerals, ever in the darkness of pages unopened and unturned, ink already begun to fade, from type since melted and recast numberless times, all but oblivion. The Delaware country their refuge, no steep grades, as level for 82 miles, they wrote to the Royal Society, as if it had been formed by art. A phrase later to be found in Maskelyne's introduction to their published observations, 1769. No hostile Indians, fresh food, cities in easy reach, obs, themselves straightforward and not even all that many. To the world's eye, 2 veteran wise men, coasting along between transits of Venus, soon to be off again for more glamorous foreign duty where the seeing's perfect and the food never less than exquisite, and adventures ever ahead and unforeseen, Boscovich and Mare all over again, a godly pursuit, and profitable withal, if only in the value of commissions to come. Yet at the same time, silently parallel to the pleasantries of teamwork, runs their effort to convince themselves that whatever they have left upon the last ridge-top, just above the last stone cairn, as if burning, as if left exhibited in chains before the contempt of all who pass, will find an end to its torment, and fragment by fragment across the seasons be taken back into the tales preserved in memory. Among the wind gusts, subterranean fires, over creatures of the wild, floods and freezes, until one day 'twill all be gone, reassumed, only its silence left there to be clamoured into by something else, something younger, without memory of or respect for what was once, across the third turning of Dunkard Creek, brought to a halt. But it does not die. It comes out at nightfall and visits, singly obsessed with a task left undone. Newcomers choose other ridgelines to settle in the shadows of. Indian priests proclaim it forbidden ground, even unto the lead mines beneath. Smugglers of tobacco, dye-stuffs, and edged implements flee their storage cabins in the middle of the night, leaving behind inventories whose odd scavengers prove as little able to withstand the disconsolate spirit prevailing here, as if to the point upon which was being daily projected some great linear summing of human incompletion, failed arrivals, departures too soon, misstated intentions, truncations of desire. Even the uncommonly stolid Stig feels it, in his perplexity resorting more and more often to the handle of his axe for reassurance. Captain Zhang, each night in his tent, shivering, continues to express concern as to the Shah situation. Returning from here will not be much better. In Shah there is no up nor down stream, rather a flow at all points sensible, equally harmful, east or west. Our sorrows shall persist and obsess for as long as we continue upon this ill-omened line. Too often, back here, they find themselves chaining through wetlands, the water usually 1.5 feet to 2 feet deep. Daylight somewhere above them, indifferent, the gloom in here forcing them to shorter sights, more set-ups, closer quarters, as they stand in the muck of the cypress swamp, black and thinly crusted, each step breaking through to release a smell of generations of death. Something in it, some principle of untaught mechanics, tugging at their ankles, voiceless, importunate. A moment arrives when one of them smacks his pate for something other than a mosquito. Everywhere they've sent us. The Cape, St. Helena, America. What's the element common to all? Long voyages by sea, replies Mason, blinking in exhaustion by now chronic. Was there anything else? Slaves. Every day at the Cape we lived with slavery in our faces, more of it at St. Helena, and now here we are again in another colony, this time having drawn them a line between their slave keepers and their wage payers, as if doomed to re-encounter through the world this public secret, this shameful core, pretending it to be ever somewhere else, with the Turks, the Russians, the companies, down there, down where it smells like warm brine and gunpowder fumes, the murdering and dispossessing thousands untallied, the innocents of the world, passing daily into the hands of slave owners and torturers. But oh, never in Holland, nor in England, that garden of fools. Christ, Mason. Christ, what? What did I do? Huz! Didn't we take the king's money, as here we're taking it again, whilst slaves waited upon us, and we neither one objected, as little as we have here in certain houses south of the line? Where does it end? No matter where in it we go, shall we find all the world tyrants and slaves? America was the one place we should not have found them. Yet we're not slaves after all. We're hirelings. I don't trust this king, Mason. I don't think anybody else does either. Thus saw Lord Ferrers take the drop at Tyburn. They execute their own. What may they be willing to do to us? End of chapter.